Well, joining us now is SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, a very good afternoon to you. So you made inquiries to the U.S. State Department on this matter. What was the response you got?
I must say they were quick to respond to my question around the reports from the New York Times. And indeed, the State Department, through its spokesperson, did confirm to the SABC that the embassy here in South Africa, the U.S. Embassy, is doing or conducting interviews of those Afrikaners who want to go to the United States of America as refugees. And the response was that this is in relation to the executive order that was signed by President Trump, you recall immediately when he got into office, saying that Afrikaners in South Africa are being persecuted and therefore they are discriminated, and he's willing to give them refugee status in the United States of America. Now, at the end of that note, that confirmation, they indicated that they will not divulge more in terms of individuals or these cases. But as you heard earlier on, in terms of the New York Times that has got documents, it's almost a number of those South Africans, and they are expected to arrive in Washington on Monday. If they will be arriving in Washington on Monday, I think they will be leaving South Africa if they are flying direct to the United States of America on Sunday. We are going to try and track down Solidarity, including the AfriForum, the two organizations that went to the United States of America and make these allegations, and now Trump responding to those allegations. But what is of concern, I think, is that when you apply for refugee status, you are saying you are not going to go back to your country because of the war, violence, persecution. Now, the question is, will they not at some point in time want to come back to their relatives? Because some people are saying you'll find that it's people with qualifications who are much younger, who can still make a better life in America. But the senior Afrikaner citizens, whites, let us be clear, those who are in South Africa, many of them are saying they are not going anywhere, they are staying here in South Africa. And therefore it will be interesting when they arrive in the United States of America. Our team in New York and also in Washington will be there to take the story forward.
Absolutely, Sophie, and one wonders about the actual sum of the numbers that will be, of course, relocating to the United States by next week. As we understand from our reporter there, Nick Harper, he says about 100 at this stage is expected to touch down in U.S. soil next week. But any word at this stage then from the South African government? What are they saying?
We haven't had a statement or reaction from the South African government. We'll try and get hold of the international relations spokesperson to check whether they are aware. And also, I think of interest will be whether these Afrikaners, white Afrikaners, will be going to the United States of America. Have they made arrangements on arrival in terms of where they will be staying? Because when you are a refugee, you normally stay in a camp, according to the United Nations Charter on issues that are related to refugees, asylum seekers.
And we understand latest incidents now are referring to this, in fact, Sophie, to this latest development as a further blow to the current U.S.-South Africa tension. So President Cyril Ramaphosa had a telephonic conversation with United States President Donald Trump last month. At that time, it did seem like they were engaging. However, this response now from the State Department is still carrying the same allegations of persecution of Afrikaners. So any indication as to when Ramaphosa will sit down with Trump?
It's not clear yet when President Ramaphosa will meet with President Trump, because you know that that information came at a time when the president of Ukraine was in the country, Zelensky. And some of us, we did suspect that it was a way for Trump to try and divert the attention, because United States of America didn't want Zelensky to come to South Africa, as America is trying to mediate between Russia and Ukraine. And of course, President Trump would want to take glory and accolades and people to say that he's a president of peace, and therefore he really wants to drive this process, but it looks like it's not happening as he anticipated. The same with the Middle East, and that is why now we hear that there's tension between him and Prime Minister of Israel. On the other hand, we heard that he has kind of communicated to President Zelensky and President Vladimir Putin that there must be a ceasefire in 30 days. A 30-day ceasefire, and therefore we haven't had the response from President Vladimir Putin, who today was surrounded by many leaders from around the world when he was commemorating or observing the Victory Day. And therefore we are waiting to hear what will be the response of Moscow. And therefore you can see that he is very desperate and in terms of ensuring that he's able to make major announcements. He has to travel to the Middle East, that is Saudi Arabia. He wants to make those big announcements in different parts of the world. And I think for now his main focus will be on the war in Ukraine. And the issue of him meeting President Ramaphosa, it's not clear yet. We haven't had any communication from the presidency in terms of the date, the venue, the time. And I think many people were hopeful after that telephone call, but if you have covered Trump during the first term and even now, you can't predict Donald Trump. He can wake up the next day and everything has changed. So the question for me is, we got the response from the State Department confirming that the Afrikaners, white Afrikaners who have applied will go to the United States of America. They are processing those applications. But when you look at the White House, if you were to call the White House spokesperson, she might say something different. So it's very difficult when you deal with the current President Trump's administration, because the first point of call was the embassy here, and the embassy directed me to the State Department. The State Department, I must say, I think Elon Musk is doing a good job. They're quite efficient and they responded quickly to SABC confirming that process. But we still have to hear from the man himself, the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. And it will be interesting to see where will these white Afrikaners settle in the United States of America, because when you look at the UN, as I pointed out, when you are a refugee, at most we are confined in camps.
Absolutely, Sophie. So Ramaphosa also appointed an envoy in the name of Mcebisi Jonas a couple of weeks ago. Has he made any progress in getting in touch with the US officials?
The last time we heard about Mcebisi Jonas, the South African envoy to the United States of America, was when that announcement was made. And since then, we haven't had anything. I guess behind the scenes, he's doing work in terms of ensuring that there's engagement. But I know for the fact that the Americans want the envoy and the Department of International Relations to start here at the embassy to come up with a document in terms of that engagement. That would include, of course, your Department of Trade and Industry or Finance, because as we pointed out on many occasions, President Trump is very transactional. You can't just go there and plead poverty or perhaps try to go and correct him. It's something that he is not going to accept when we are going there to try and explain what is happening. He wants you to come with a deal. We saw what happened yesterday in terms of the United Kingdom and the United States of America. The same, he's talking about discussions with China. He said the same with Ukraine. It looks like that mineral deal is on the cards now. The documents are there. So when you go to President Trump, you must have a clear document, give and take.
Absolutely, Sophie. Thank you so much. We're going to leave it there with SABC News International editor Sophie Mokoena.